back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I recently got invited to a really cool event and I wanted to share some of the footage from that event with you guys and hopefully kind of get you interested in the book and also the people who were there. So the event that I went to was hosted at the Albright Private Members Club in London, and it was an event that was celebrating the release of a book called The Charmed Life of Alex Moore. It's written by Molly Flatt, who you will see in the footage, and basically it was an event all about how limiting self-beliefs can lead to being your biggest successes. How something that you think is a hindrance and a bad thing can sometimes be turned around and actually become a strength and something that is really valued and wonderful about you by other people. So the event was called the Success Monologues and it was obviously hosted by Molly, but then we also had lots of other speakers there who were really incredible women in their own right. The whole room was just women. It was very lady focused because obviously the book is all about that. And the author was fantastic at speaking, as were all of the other speakers. I had so much footage from this event. I think I filmed for, I don't know, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and I tried to cut this down to a reasonable length and just give you a little bit of a taster of everything. But basically when we got there we had a load of speeches both from the author and the other women who were selected as speakers, and each of them gave us a little bit about their self-limiting beliefs and also about how they've overcome these and things they've done in their day-to-day life. Things like achievements and decisions they've made that have helped change them for the better and helped turn these beliefs into something wonderful. So the event was fantastic. We had cocktails and drinks after that too, and there was a little disco at the end as well. I took one of my really good friends along with me and we ended up having a great time. But here is the footage, just for you guys.
I am too much. I am too big. I am too loud. I am too fast. I am too enthusiastic. I am too energetic. I am too ambitious. I am too hungry. I'm too clumsy, I'm too honest, I am too much. This is probably my most persistent and powerful limiting self-belief. I have spent a lot of time over the years finding many creative ways to make myself smaller. Thankfully, nowadays, I'm kind of learning to embrace my muchness a little bit more. I think I simply got fed up with squashing myself down, and I think I've accumulated some tools over the years to fight the squash, kind of physical and mental tools. My brilliant agent, Catherine, pitched The Charmed Life of Alex Moore as Bridget Jones meets the Matrix. A hybrid of adventure, satire, romance, fantasy and science fiction, which might give you a small idea of exactly how much it is. I'm so delighted to have 5 incredible women here who are going to also share their stories and their limiting self-beliefs. Adrienne is an Adidas Global Ambassador, a personal trainer, a mentor and an influencer. She has been featured in Women's Health magazine, Sunday Times Style magazine, and she was named a new face of wellness by British Vogue. She's co-founder of Get to Know, a network and community for women in the creative industries, offering peer-to-peer networking, real talk and support. And she has an amazing taste in knitwear. Adrienne, do you want to come and sit or stand?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I know that we have 5 minutes each and I talk a lot, so I'm going to kind of just jump right in and just give me this signal if it's like 25 minutes later. So obviously the thing of self-confidence, self-belief, limiting beliefs, I am kind of fascinated with this at the moment, and so I was really grateful to come and speak today. And I think, I read a lot about how we develop these self-belief issues and these kind of limiting belief systems from childhood or experiences that we have growing up. And whenever I read that, I'm always kind of confused because, to be honest, for me, I feel like it was the opposite. When I was younger, I'm one of 4 siblings. I was very extroverted. I was very loud, and I always felt like I can do that. I can do that. If they needed a volunteer, me. If you wanted to, like, you know, I'd be like, everyone sit down and watch my show, or like follow me. And like, honestly, like, I was definitely like, yeah. And I think when I went for opportunities or experiences, for example, at 15, when I decided I wanted to audition for a performing arts school in London, I was going to school in Leeds, and so many people were just like, you can't move to London, like, and go to like a West End, like, fame school or whatever. And a lot of the people in my dance classes had been dancing since they were 3 or 4, doing ballet and tap and jazz, everything. They had all the grades, and I had been dancing for about 3 years doing classes. But I'd been dancing my whole life, like in my bedroom and like with Michael Jackson videos, Destiny's Child, and I just was like, why not me? Like, what? You know, I always had that thing. It was never like, am I good enough? It was like, why not me? So I feel like that got me a long way, and I did go to performing arts school in London, and I did perform in the West End in musicals, and I was kind of like, see, you know, whatever you want to do, it's cool. And then I think I got older, and then I started to get more kind of, you know, self-critical, more self-doubt, more kind of experiences where you're like, oh, okay, or like people saying things to you, or, you know, just the world like kind of brings you down and like puts these things around you that kind of make you go, you're not so good at that, or like there's somebody better, there's somebody slimmer, there's somebody prettier, there's somebody who can sing better, especially that industry, like it's very kind of competitive, and you kind of go, it shrinks you, I think. So yeah, so then I had, I think, probably a time of being I guess just trying to dilute myself a bit and going, oh, you know, as you said, like, oh, I'm too loud or I'm too enthusiastic or whatever, and being like, I need to be more chill, you know, I need to be more cool or whatever. So there's only so long you can kind of like fake who you are, and then eventually you just have to let the real you like back out. So essentially, yeah, I left the performing arts industry, like kind of through a bad circumstance, but now it's turned good. I was actually performing in We Will Rock You, which is at Tottenham Court Road, and unfortunately, and I was pregnant at the time too, so yeah, really excited, newlywed, newly pregnant, in the West End, like everything's great. And then my husband unfortunately became really, really ill. He had a spontaneous brain hemorrhage, which then resulted in him developing epilepsy. So I left the theatre, and yeah, was a stay-at-home mum for a while, and was also learning to kind of, yeah, deal with what that meant for our family, and he wasn't able to drive and lots of things. But then out of that kind of came this thing of me being like, okay, like I want to work, I've always worked, I want to do something active because I've got a lot of energy and I can't sit still, and I want to do something active, so what can I do? So I started to retrain to become a personal trainer. Hence now, as you said, I work in the fitness industry, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a runner, and now, yeah, Adidas Global Ambassador. And so I think when I set off on that journey, I had no idea of the opportunities that lay ahead or the things that I could or couldn't do. And I think with that, like going into that industry, there's kind of two sides to it. So often people think about the fitness industry, oh, it's this really intimidating place where everybody's wearing Lycra and they've got 6 packs and it's awful. But honestly, I am a testament to the fact that I have worked in this industry for 6 years. I see the real deal. People are encouraging. People are, you know, supportive, motivated. They, you know, especially in the running community, being a runner, if you go to a 5K race or a marathon, it does not matter if somebody crosses the line in 3 hours, in 7 hours. They are cheered every step of the way. People cheer when you cross the finish line. Strangers will cheer for you. Like, people are so encouraging, and everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody wants you to, everyone's got their own reason for being there, their own reason to run. Like, I never would have found running if it wasn't for that year of my life, what happened to my husband. I actually started running the following year because I just needed, you know, something. I was kind of running away from my responsibility and the stress of it, and that's how I discovered running. But now, being a part of this global running community and meeting runners from around the world, I've run in different cities, I've run in groups. I have last year completed the London Marathon to raise money for epilepsy research. And so bringing it back to the self-doubt, I definitely think last year when I took on that challenge, that was one of the things where I said, yes, I'll do that. I'll do the London Marathon, woohoo. And Adidas kind of kindly gave me the opportunity. I am a sprinter. I had never run further than 8 miles when I said yes to the marathon. But being such a believer in this, you know, our belief systems limit us, and that we ultimately are so adaptable as humans. Like, I genuinely believe if you apply your mind to something, anything, you can adapt, you can learn. It's not a case that you're not a good swimmer or you're not a good runner. I just believe you're not a good swimmer yet, or runner yet. So I was like, cool, I'm in. And I had 15 weeks to get ready for the marathon. not long enough, by the way. But I had all this pressure from people then that came onto me that were like, Adrienne, you're doing the London Marathon and you're an ambassador for Adidas and you're so fit and I see your Instagram posts and you're going to smash it. And suddenly I was like, whoa, guys, I've never done a marathon before. Like, I'm just going to, you know, try my best and try to finish this thing. And then the training was so brutal and I had to kind of, you know, commit so much time to the long runs and going to bed early, and you can't drink alcohol and you have to literally change your life because you're like the marathon. And I was training for it, and I remember going out one day for a 16-mile run, which is a long way, and I got to like 10 miles and the self-doubt and the criticism and the voices that are just like, why do you think you could do this? Like, you're at mile 10. A marathon is 26 miles. This is no joke. Like, what are you doing? Like, my feet are hurting. My hips are hurting. I'm cold. This isn't even fun anymore. Like, I literally was just running like, this is awful. And I got to the 16-mile mark, and I was proud of myself because that was what I was supposed to do. And I walked into my house, and I think I wanted to feel elated and be like, yes, I smashed it. But I didn't. I felt so defeated because I was like, Adrienne, the marathon is 26 miles and so many people are looking at you being like, you're so fit, you're Adrienne, you're full of energy, you're going to smash it. And I honestly just, I wanted to cry, but I didn't even have the energy left. I was literally just like broken. And I think it was maybe 6 weeks to go as well. So yeah, for me, that time was a time when I had to go, you know what? Stop listening to people's kind of, what time are you running it in? What's this? Yeah, I just was like, you know what? I know I want to do this, and I'm going to start rewarding myself for the willingness to try. Literally, if I can stick and I can be consistent in my behavior, that's something that I have carried through from that experience to now.
Our second speaker is Natasha Devon, MBE, no less, is a writer and activist who campaigns for better mental health awareness and provision. Her book, A Beginner's Guide to Being Mental, I love that title, An A to Z from Anxiety to Zero Fucks Given, was published last month.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi everyone. Do you know my bum actually nearly doesn't fit in this chair?
Yeah.
But I'm fine.
I think there was a Twitter debate about actually that like bar stool seating is so unfair to women, which is slightly ironic because it's like depends on the outfit, depends on the it's quite complicated.
But I feel actually it feels nice.
You're rocking it.
Yeah, I like it. I've decided I like it. Hi everyone. My name's Natasha and I am mental. I have an anxiety disorder, which I now understand I had since I was 10 years old. That was the first time I had a panic attack. I was a netball player at school. I was goal attack. Any other goal attacks in the house? Yes, the best one.
Tall girls.
Yeah, tall girl thing. But I was really into sport. I was a very robust child. If you ask my mum, she'll say she was very robust, which means I was always sort of running around red in the face going, just living my best life. And then I stopped playing netball because I was starting to struggle to breathe, and that was very scary for me. My teacher noticed this and she said to my mum, I think you should take her to the doctor. So the doctor looked at my list of symptoms and said, you've clearly got asthma. So I was diagnosed with asthma and I was given an inhaler, which I was actually really pleased about because I don't know if you remember this, but this was 1991 when this was happening. And back then, an inhaler was a really cool playground accessory. Before social media, so we had to make our own entertainment. So I'm there with my inhaler, I was using it all the time. But it didn't work because the reasons that I was having difficulty breathing weren't physiological, they were psychological. And what my doctor didn't do was he didn't ask me anything about what was going on for me emotionally at that time. Something that I still struggle with to this day. I have a little lump that lives in my throat. I call it Nigel. It's named after Farage. I would say it's a long story, but it's not. It's just an annoying little bastard. And so I guess my first self-limiting belief was this idea that it's weakness to ask for help. Because what I now understand about human beings is that we stand the best chance of survival in a pack. We are pack animals. Because compared to other mammals, we're a bit rubbish, really. We're not very fast. We're not very strong. So we're created imperfect. No one's good at everything. So if you are asking someone else for help, it's not weakness. That's just humanity. That's just being human. And that brings me on to my second self-limiting belief, because that idea that strength and stoicism are the same thing is most often associated with men. It's considered to be a very masculine point of view. And a lot of people point to that as the reason why a man dies by suicide every 2 hours in this country, because men don't speak openly about their emotions. And I think perhaps because of that, when you hear a man speaking about mental health, more often than not, people's first response is they say, oh, you're so brave. And it is brave in the context of the way masculinity is defined. It is brave. But it's also interesting to note the contrast between that and what happens when a woman speaks about mental health. Because when a woman speaks about mental health, people's first reaction is to ask her what her qualifications are. So when I wrote this book, A Beginner's Guide to Being Mental, which is a combination of my own experiences, it's sprinkled with memories, but it's also got a hefty dose of science. It was, in many ways, me saying to the world, I am an expert. I have something of value to say, and I think that people should listen. Thank you.
Bethany, I think. Bethany Mota is a writer and podcaster from London who focuses on clothes and bodies. Her first book, Plus, came out in February, and her debut novel, No Big Deal, is being published by Macmillan Children's next year. She also co-hosts the book's podcast, What Page Are You On?
Hi. So I've written some things that I'm going to read to you, but actually something very interesting happened while I was sitting down that I realised tied in very neatly with this theme, which is, I know my butt isn't going to fit in this chair. That's not a self-limiting belief. That's a reality of the world that I cannot do anything about. My butt will not fit in this chair, but does that mean I don't have anything useful to tell you? It does not. So I will begin reading my thing. So just ahead of my final year of my undergraduate degree, I interned at a women's magazine. I was the editor of the UCR magazine. I was interested in fashion. I was fairly knowledgeable about designers. But I had a sneaking suspicion that the world of women's magazines was not the one for me. That suspicion was confirmed once and for all when I heard one employee say to another that before coming home from a holiday in India, she had, this is like verbatim, I remember it like it was yesterday, she had licked the bottom of her flip-flop because she felt she hadn't lost enough weight on holiday, as if holidays, and specifically holidays to India, weren't a time for rest or relaxation or discovering a new place and a new culture, as if their primary function was to enable weight loss, something that she was so desperate for that she would literally do something so vile and unhygienic with the stated goal of making her so physically unwell she would lose weight through sickness. I knew then that I would never be able to achieve success in the context of a women's magazine. Every day I would feel so beaten down and inhibited by the knowledge that my colleagues would go to such extreme and violent lengths to keep their bodies as thin as humanly possible. That is not a self-limiting belief. That is this chair. That is the truth of the world that I inhabit. So for me, success has always been balancing the reality of the world that I live in with trying to overcome self-limiting beliefs. I don't believe that the world is constructed fairly or equitably, so I don't believe it's my responsibility to put myself through unpleasant situations to overcome that and experience success. That would be like trying to sit in that chair to prove to you that I can, which is like dumb and counterproductive, and that's something I need to do. But the way that I've experienced success is either by placing myself in or constructing for myself situations in which I'm able to do good work, to do my best work, without the overwhelming spiritual and psychological weight, pardon the pun, of the world that I live in. So in every way, sometime around 2011 or 2012, I just stopped playing the game. That's kind of the only way that I've ever been able to think about it. I stopped chasing the kind of success that might look good on paper, that might look good to other people, but that was in no way compatible with the person I am and the life that I want for myself. So how did I become the person that I am today? I refocused my vision. I stopped trying to fit in a world that didn't want me, which was, for me, the world of kind of mainstream fashion and women's magazines. I started to embrace the person I actually was. I stopped being a aspirant thin person and accepted that I was probably going to be fat forever, so I might as well get on with the living. And I started following plus-size fashion bloggers. I pored over their entire back catalogue of posts. I just completely fell in love with them, with their looks, with their confidence, with their assertive sense of style, which, as you can tell, I have now inherited. One day a friend said to me, you could do that. You could have a blog. You could do what they do. And I had literally never thought of it. It had never crossed my mind. But then in 2011, I started my own blog, which was specifically a plus-size fashion blog. I wanted to be really explicit about that. It was really important to me to kind of define who I was and who I was blogging for. So I stopped consuming as many images from the mainstream women's media, and instead I followed lots of other kind of plus-size women on social media because I was surrounding myself with so much positivity, I became more able to create positivity myself. Knowing that I wasn't alone, knowing that I was part of this kind of worldwide community of fat women made me feel like I had an audience that would get something out of the things that I wanted to say about bodies and fashion, like our bodies, our fashion. Not bodies and fashion that were mediated through the lens of this kind of very oppressive culture. Not bodies and fashion as defined by someone who would rather literally lick the bottom of their flip-flop than stay the same thin weight that they already were.
Last but by no means least, we have Alice, who is the editor of ElleKayEm magazine, as I mentioned earlier. She's a freelance curator, a spokesperson for the tattoo community, and the author of Tattoo Street Style.
All day I've actually probably been trying to overcome all of the limiting self-beliefs I have about public speaking, because I am absolutely terrified and not very good at it. So, yeah. So I think it's a success that I'm even here right now. Trying to talk to you all. When I got asked to do this talk, I was like, oh God, I feel like I have so many self-doubts that I don't really know how to tell people to feel better about those. I think my mum will probably agree. I was actually, as a child, I was such a worrier. I was like, worry about everything. So I would try not to look at the bigger picture. It would be like, I think of, you know, what's my next goal and how do I get to it? And try not to overthink it on the way. And actually, just before we had dinner, and I was like, Mum, what did I ever want to be when I was younger? She was like, well, I don't think you really wanted to be anything. You just had this aim of going to university, and you would just worked really, really hard to get there. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe that's what I did. And I feel like actually it made me, thinking of that as a goal, made me realise that I just pick a goal, I work really hard on it, and then I see what doors that opens. I graduated, I got a 2-1, I did all right. I realised actually, oh, do you know what, maybe I did deserve to be there. And then I was like, oh, what else can I do? So I did a master's. I did a master's in publishing. I was like, oh, I'm all right at this too. And at the time, I remember I really wanted to get a tattoo. So I was like, and it was before the days of Instagram, so it wasn't that easy to find a tattoo artist. So I was like, oh, I'll start buying tattoo magazines. Well, I tell you what, they are the most vile, disgusting things. And I didn't see any tattoos I wanted to get, so I was like, oh God, right, what should I do? Should I start my own, maybe? So I was like, so during my publishing masters, I was like, oh, I think there's a gap in the market for an empowering female tattoo magazine. And my tutor was like, yes, this is a brilliant idea. This is brilliant. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. How am I going to launch a tattoo magazine? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I did it as my final project for university. Everyone raved about it, thought it was brilliant. And then they were like, you should do this in real life. I was like, well, I can't do that. How am I going to launch a magazine? But I did actually start working in the magazine world, wrote for lots of different women's magazines, and I agree with Bethany, like it was a pretty hideous place to work in all the women's magazines, and still no one had launched a female tattoo magazine. I was like, I'm going to bloody do this, I'm going to do it myself. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I will. And I got a group of us all together. I think I tweeted one night, I'm going to launch a tattoo magazine, and so many people messaged back and was like, yeah, this is brilliant, I'll write for you. And actually Bethany did write for my first ever issue. Things in Ink was all about providing an inspiring place for women to be who the hell they want to be, if they want to be tattooed, whatever you want to be.
So I'm going to read a bit from the first chapter of the book. So there's not too much you need to know. East Road was uncomfortably hot, even at 2 a.m. The faint breeze did nothing but waft a sour cocktail of tar and night bus fumes across Alex's face. But she didn't care. She was full to the brim, electric with connection. The manhole cover ringwormed with gum, the gutter frotted with ash, the peroxide wig nesting beneath the stunted sapling. They all served to make her night even more magical, because they were proof that it was real. Harry aside, she could already feel the success of the evening gushing through her digital tributaries, sparking new alliances, reinforcing the old, leaving a wake of excitement that she knew would continue to froth over the next few days. when her eye caught on some charity spam for a Sudanese flood or possibly a Vietnamese drought. Her electric sense of connection was so strong that she not only texted to donate 20 quid, but filled out the gift aid form. Shouts and the shiver of chain link rang out from Shoreditch Park. Alex crossed the bridge onto de Beauvoir Road. She was just logging into the back end of Udo to get a head start on tomorrow's behind-the-scenes party blog when the man slammed into her. She flew a good couple of feet before she hit the pavement. As she rolled onto her back, he planted his knees in her stomach, pinning her down. One of his hands splayed over her mouth, and his thumb pressed into her eyelid, making the darkness warp and spark. The other wrapped around her neck, the pads of his fingers rough-skinned behind her ears. He smelled of body odour and fast food, and he was breathing in laboured gasps. A single drop of sweat splashed from his skin onto her lips as she lay beneath him, lungs burning, heart rabbit drumming in her chest. He shifted his weight, and she managed to reach for her right foot, jackknifed up beneath her left buttock, just as he reared back to reveal an old-fashioned farmer's shotgun. In one desperate motion, Alex stabbed 5 inches of hand-stitched stiletto heel into her attacker's solar plexus. Finally catching her breath, she screamed. He reeled back with a strangled grunt while she rolled over the curb and out into the road. Scrabbling against the tarmac, she got into her hands and knees and screamed again. Oi! Oi! There were shouts and footsteps, and now another man appeared, a different one. Oh God, a gang. The new man was moving towards her now, ready to take his turn. No! Alex cough-shouted. Get away! All right, lady, all right. The new man took a step backwards into the orange puddle of the streetlight, pushing back his hoodie, holding up his palms. He was a boy, really. Pasty, stubbled, slightly overweight. His face glistened with sweat. Wasn't me, lady, wasn't me. The boy just ran after him. You all right? Alex remained on her knees, staring at him mutely for a second. Then she slumped down onto her heels with a sob. Tried to get up, sank back down. Unbuckled her remaining shoe with shaking fingers. Eventually got to her feet. You all right? The boy was keeping his distance. Fuck! Alex said. Fuck! You get a look at him? He had a gun! A massive fucking... Her voice wobbled. Shotgun! Like Mr. fucking McGregor! The boy, looking worried, squinted beyond Alex into the dark. Didn't know he was packing. We only saw his back. Came running when we heard you shout. He indicated over his shoulder to a paved courtyard in front of a council block. Beyond this, Alex knew, was a bollard-lined strip of grass where the de Beauvoir kids liked to hang out. Walking on the canal path below, she had more than once clocked the skulking hoodies with their lurching staffies and expensive phones. The boy's expression brightened. Oh, it's all right. Here he is. Alex turned to see a lean boy in a white vest jogging towards them. He gathered up her bag, laptop, phone and shoe as he approached and held them out to her at arm's length. Couldn't get him, he said. His cornrows were bleeding sweat, and his hands, when she brushed them to take back her stuff, were slippery. Weren't big, but you were fucking fast. You all right, lady? Yes, Alex replied, clasping the laptop to her chest like a shield. Instantly sober, she could feel the chill of shock on its way, the delayed seeping in of the pain.